at this time, when you describe your son as being moody or depressed, did you think it was anything that warranted getting medical attention?
No, he was just being quieter. He's a quiet kid. He was just being quieter than normal. And I'd ask him if everything okay. He'd say fine, but I could just tell he was a little sad. And I thought maybe I didn't see his friend in a couple of weeks. So I don't know if maybe they got into a fight and they weren't talking. So I was asking her if there was anything going on with his friend, which might have caused my son to be quieter than normal. But I think he was just really stressed out because those 2 weeks that we were in Florida, he got pretty far behind on his grades.
Okay, so then it goes on and you end up saying, yeah, me too, I'm glad they're getting along, and it wasn't an issue with those two as to why he was being depressed. The online school is horrible. I've given up too. I told him just to do his best, don't worry about it, next year's a new year. And then maybe if his friend is feeling better, he wants to come over to work, and then you're talking about shooting up a gun range in the backyard, correct?
Yeah, targets.
Okay, so did this issue of him feeling depressed or acting moody, this one period of time, did that go on or did that discontinue?
It discontinued. I mean, it was a little phase, and he seemed to be fine. Him and his friends started coming over more. I think it was more or less his friend wasn't coming over as much, and he just seemed quieter than normal.
And you guys were out of town. You had just been out of town for
right. Yeah, and he just lost his grandmother, so that was sad too.
Okay. All right, and then there was one other conversation that you had with his friend's mother that the prosecution introduced as Exhibit 105. I'm going to put that up, okay? So this is actually from, let's see here, starts off on, I'm going to go to Halloween, so 10/31 of 21. You say to her, James filled me in on his friend last night. I'm so sorry you guys are having to make such a hard decision. Please let me know if you need anything. What was that about?
We had found out the day before Halloween that his son, my son's friend, went to Wisconsin to an OCD treatment school. We didn't know. We had Halloween plans. And we were texting with his friend's parents, about his friend still coming over to carve pumpkins on Halloween, because they do that every year, and then they go out and trick or treat. And we didn't hear from him, and all of a sudden my husband found out through his friend's dad that they drove to Wisconsin, and he's at an OCD treatment center for at least 90 days. So it hit us really hard because we didn't really expect it coming. He didn't expect it coming. It was hard.
Did you do anything different as a parent when his friend was taken away, essentially, to the hospital or the other school?
I don't understand.
Did you do anything different as a parent in terms of spending time with your son?
I mean, we did as much as we could.
Okay, tell us about that. Tell us about that month.
I think we did more family game nights than normal. He was working a lot. I would check in with him, make sure he's doing okay. That's when I started asking him, do you have friends at school that you can hang out with? And if so, you're more than welcome to invite him over.
Okay.
I was more on point of the fact that he was sad.
Okay. And even though he was sad, did you feel like there was anything where he needed help or needed mental health treatment?
No.
Was his loss of his friend being in his life anything that made you think he needed counseling or a therapist?
Not to that extent, no.
I'm going to unplug this so that we can go back to go to questions that don't involve exhibits, okay? Okay. So we were talking earlier about the mother-son gun range day, right?
Correct.
You've already told the jury how the gun was put in the car and taken out. Okay. Now, did you ever tell Brian Maloche about the mother-son day at the range?
I'm sure I mentioned it, yeah.
Did you ever tell Brian that the gun was in your vehicle?
Yes.
Okay, when did you tell Brian that the gun was in your vehicle?
On the day I went to the shooting range.
Did you tell Brian you put the gun in your car the day the shooting happened?
No.
So when he testified to that, was that accurate?
No, I think he was confused.
Okay. Did you specifically tell him about the gun being put in your car that other time?
Yes.
Aside from that time that you drove to the range, was the gun ever in your car?
No.
Were you aware Brian had memory issues?
No, I was not.
Brian testified that he never met Ethan. Later in his testimony, he said he did. Did he ever meet Ethan?
Yeah, a couple of times at the barn.
Okay.
And we went, he came to our house, he helped deliver a big TV that we got, and my son was there.
Did you ever tell Brian anything about your son saying things or making you upset in any way like that?
No.
Did you ever tell Brian anything about he had mental health issues that you were worried about?
No.
So when we read your messages, which the prosecution admitted, the 77 pages, okay, it's fair to say the jury can read what you guys talked about and you reflect on all the, you talk about the past with Ethan, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so the jury can read those. We don't need to go through those. You agree?
I agree.
Okay. So we got to Monday. Monday is 2 days after you guys go for the Mother's Sunday at the shooting range. Monday, Miss Fine leaves you the voicemail. We talked about that already. Talked about you talking to your son about it, right? Okay, I want to go to Tuesday, the 30th. Okay?
Okay.
Do you remember Tuesday the 30th?
I do.
And that day, we saw an exhibit of you going into work. That happened?
Yes.
And we heard lots of testimony already about you getting a call from Sean Hopkins.
Correct. He left me a voicemail and I called him back.
Okay. When you called back, Mr. Hopkins testified that he sent you something. What did he send you?
He sent me a copy of a math worksheet that had the scribbled out drawings on it.
Okay. And I want to ask you, the night before that scribbles out drawing thing came to you, did you have any interactions with your son?
Yes, we did.
What were those about?
I saw in Power School that he had an E in geometry, so we got in an argument again about his grades. We took his phone away and told him that he couldn't go to the shooting range until his grades were brought back up.
Okay, so you guys had this argument the night before. We saw lots of messages where you thought everything was fine that Tuesday morning. Is that how you felt?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you got that math paper texted to you, do you recall saying anything to Ethan on the phone, on speaker?
Yeah, I asked him why he did that.
Okay. What were you thinking at that point?
I was actually kind of angry because I thought he did that in like defiance of us yelling him about missing assignments, and here he is drawing pictures on an empty assignment page in geometry.
So you felt like it was specifically him sending you a message about the night before?
Yeah.
Is it fair to say you took it personally?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so what did you do?
I had asked Mr. Hopkins if he had the original, and then he sent it to my email, which then I opened up and looked at it, and it's like, okay.
What did you think when you saw that?
I was a little concerned. I was pretty concerned. He had asked for a parent to come to the school to meet with them, and at this time I tried calling my husband to see if he could go because he was out in the area working, and I couldn't get a hold of him, so I decided to go to the school. On the way to the school, he finally called me back and he met me at the school, so we went together.
Okay, and when you went into the school, what did you think was happening?
I thought he was going to get in trouble for what he drew on his assignment. I thought I was going to get suspended. I was expecting a disciplinary meeting.
Okay, how did you feel about what you saw on that paper?
I felt concerned after seeing that.
Okay. And so we saw that you sent pictures of the math papers to Kira, to Andy, to Brian. It's fair to say you sent them around to people.
I did.
Okay, and to all those people, we've already seen all the exhibits. You expressed that concern.
Correct.
Okay, so what happens when you get to the school with you and James arrived separately? I think the detective testified that he was wrong at first, thinking you went together, but you guys were separate. Got there at the same time.
Correct.
Went in. What was it like walking into the meeting with Mr. Hopkins and Mr. Ejak? Who was there?
So when we first got there, Mr. Hopkins met us out in front of where the administration is and walked us back to his counseling office. When we walked in, it was just him, and then my son was sitting in a chair in front of his desk working on something on his laptop. So when he walked in, he kind of showed us where to sit, and then we shook hands, he introduced himself, and started the meeting.
Did you try to hug Ethan or do anything like that?
I didn't.
Okay. And when, how did that meeting go?
It was pretty nonchalant. It was pretty brief. He started to tell. He basically filled me in on what my son and him were talking about for the last hour and a half. He said that my son told him that he was feeling sad over the death of a dog that we had. My mother-in-law lost his friend. So we talked a little bit about that. We confirmed it. We just said we agreed it was hard on him. He told us that he didn't feel my son was a risk, and actually gave him the option if he wanted to stay at school or go home. My son wanted to stay at school, so we all discussed that.
Did you feel like you were taking the position of I am leaving him at school whether he can be here or not?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. Were you surprised or were you not surprised? Did you have any feelings about whether or not he could stay at school?
I didn't really. I thought the advice that they were giving us was a good advice. We talked about him being sad, and then he said being around peers usually helps. So we all agreed to that. My son gets very stressed out when he does virtual school, so we agreed that it might stress him out more to do his school remotely the rest of the day. But there was never a time where I would refuse to take him home. I could easily, if he wanted to go, take him with me. I had no issues with that.
Okay, so ultimately, did you take a paper from the school?
The counseling papers, yeah.
Okay.
There was a stack, like maybe 10 sheets with multiple counselors listed on them.
Okay. And were you planning to do anything with that sheet?
Yeah, actually, we were going to start. I gave it to my husband out in the parking lot, and I told him I had phone calls at work the rest of the day, so I told him to start making calls once he got done doing his DoorDash.
Okay. Now, the prosecution introduced and admitted an exhibit, which was a search off of Yahoo about clinical depression treatments. Do you recall ever Googling, but do you recall ever searching that topic?
I don't, and I don't usually use Yahoo as a search engine. I always use Google, so I don't know. I don't recall it, no.
Okay. Do you recall how or if you ever saw anything on Yahoo about clinical depression?
I don't remember specifically seeing anything. I might have looked at something when my husband was going through a really hard time after his mother passed away. He was he was drinking a little bit more than usual, and you just tell he wasn't right. So I might have looked at something at that time, seeing if he was depressed, but not. I don't know where Yahoo came from.
You don't know how the Yahoo came to
No.
be? Okay. When you're on Facebook and Instagram and all those things, do you ever hit the clickbait stuff?
Sometimes on accident. Sometimes I do on purpose.
Okay, so that search on Yahoo, you don't remember ever putting that in the search bar?
No.
Okay. But you are saying it's possible you looked at it. Is that?
It's possible.
Okay. All right. So let's go back. So you're at the meeting. How did the meeting end?
So we all decided that my son was going to go back to his class, So we wrote him a pass to go back to class. After he left, all four of us were in the meeting, and they asked if we had any questions, and we did not. And then I said, I'm going to go back to work. And we left, and I went to work, and my husband did DoorDash. And
Did you mean to be abrupt about ending the meeting?
I didn't think I was abrupt.
Did you think you ended the meeting?
I think it just automatically ended when they asked if we had any questions, and I said no.
Okay. So when there was testimony about that, I'm sorry, strike that.